It is once again a new day, and new possibilities are on the horizon. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about today, but I've just had a coffee, and I put Monin. If you know what Monin is, then I don't need to say any more about that. But if you don't know what Monin is, it is like syrup that you put in coffee, and you can get all kinds of flavors. You can get salted caramel, you can get probably anything, hazelnut. But I have salted caramel because Roseanne, my girlfriend, wanted it. So that's why we got it. And I don't usually have it. I did something different with my coffee today. What I did was I did the milk. I use oat barista milk. It's quite good. I like using the rapeseed oil milk. I know there's a whole load of thing about rapeseed oil being bad, but I use the barista milk because I think it's better than normal milk. I don't like normal milk in my coffee, but that's besides the point. What I did today was I did the milk first, put the milk in my mug first, and then poured in the coffee, and it completely changed the flavor. And I actually don't think I like it as much as if you put the coffee in first and then the milk in. So we live and we learn. I probably won't do that again. I'll probably just do it the old-fashioned way. No Monin, just put the coffee in first and the milk in. Have organic coffee, that's an important factor. I do like to have organic wherever I can. I don't know anything about whether organic is necessarily better or worse, I don't know. And often I see that organic produce looks really shit compared to the non-organic produce, and I'm guessing it's because there's a lower demand for the organic produce, and so they simply can't get it out quick enough to be fresh all the time, which is okay. We don't live in a perfect world. But yeah, and often a lot of food in the UK is bloody tasteless. There's no flavour whatsoever. It's a pretty dire situation food-wise in the UK. I won't go on about that, my thoughts on food. I just find it funny how the UK look at the rest of the world and think, oh, they look at Africa and they think, oh, poor Africans are malnutritioned. And then in the UK, we literally have like an epidemic of malnutrition, like fucking everyone's diseased here because of possibly nutrition being a factor in that, because everyone's eating bloody McDonald's, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have McDonald's once in a while. I do like a McDonald's. I've tried the Philly cheesesteak recently. I think that's what it's called, Philly cheesesteak, and it's pretty good. It doesn't taste that different to anything else they do, but nevertheless, I enjoyed it. And I don't think we should be so anal about what we put in our bodies. I do believe that there is leeway. I do believe that life is not about, this is actually something I wanted to talk about today. I do believe that life is not about being so righteous. I don't believe that forcing yourself to do anything is going to be any healthier than going with your own flow. If you look at some of the oldest people in the world, or some of the people who have lived the longest, they are usually smokers, drinkers. They live in a way that they enjoy personally. And it might not make sense to anyone else, but to them, that's their meaning. And I feel like in life, the thing that keeps you going, the thing that keeps you alive above nutrition and exercise and all these things that everyone's telling you to do, is meaning. The individual meaning that you get out of whatever it is that you do. And it might be something like as simple as smoking weed. You do that first thing in the morning, and that's a little bit of meaning for you. But it's really, to me, it's always been fruitless when I try to copy someone else, or I take inspiration. I guess it's how we learn. I got into juggling because I met a guy at the park who was a juggler, and I was just fascinated, and I couldn't do it, and I was like, fuck, I want to be able to juggle. And so you do meet people along your path who will most likely inspire you to take things up, and that's very natural. It's a dog. Morning. It's interesting. You see the same people every morning on the same walk, and people are gonna get fed up with me. No, I don't think so. I don't think people are gonna get fed up with me. I try to keep the peace wherever I can. I am, as outspoken as I may be, I do like to keep the peace. It's an important factor in my life. I don't like to ruffle too many feathers. I like to say something and then say something to balance it, or do something and then do something to balance it. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's just the way that I live. If I say something that's outspoken, I'll give you the other side. I'll give you the other angle, because I'm not someone who comes from any particular angle. I am someone who is very much interested in what angles there are in the bigger picture. How many angles can I see the same thing from? Because that to me is quite comforting, to see something from many angles. I don't like to just have my angle on things and that's it, because that's boring. To me, that's boring. I like to have many angles because I don't see life as an exercise in trying to come to my own conclusions or make up my mind about anything in particular. There are things that I have learnt about myself and kind of know how to work with myself better than I did a year ago, say, and we're constantly learning how to be good for ourselves. And I'm still on that journey very much. But I've learnt something recently. I might backtrack on this in the future. That is something you have to be open to. You have to be open to going down a line, exploring it for what it is, and then not being averse to just backtracking altogether and saying, okay, I tried it, but it wasn't for me, and now I'm going to try something else. There's a lot of pressure these days to sort of pick something and run with it. And then you've got the kind of notion of like life is limited, and you've got to like, you know, pin down exactly what it is that you want to do. But I don't think life is so straightforward as that, because I've never done that. I've never done that against everything that everyone has ever told me about productivity and procrastination, and oh, you need to just find something that it clicks with you and run with it. Against all that, I have always gone with kind of what I feel, with a little element of rationality in there. I don't think it's good to be entirely led by your feelings, but it's good to listen to your feelings. Listen to everything and then use a little bit of rationality. I don't think there isn't a place for rationality. There's a lot of irrationality in the world at the moment. And I think rationality is not a bad addition to one's arsenal of tools to navigate this realm. And it is a realm. I like to refer to this place as a realm, like an infinite realm, where we don't know what's going on. We don't know what our purpose is here. We don't know who we are. And everything that we do is just part of the current theater that we have constructed collectively. And that's beautiful, because I've been lonely as fuck in my life and realized that without other people, and without the dynamic, and without people making drama, and without people making mountains out of molehills, there's actually not much to live for. There's just nothingness unless we make something of that nothingness. And nothingness has a place. Nothingness has a big place in this day and age. There's not enough nothingness. I often think about how a long time ago, 500 years ago, there were great artists, great musicians. There were so many great people that existed a long time ago. And today, you don't see so much individuality. There are people around who you look at and be like, wow, they're doing good stuff, but they're not like outstanding. There's no, I mean, like the world's most renowned music artist is like probably Kanye West at the moment, and he's little more than a businessman. He's an artist, but he's not, he's not Beethoven, he's not Mozart, he's not creating music that's really progressive or taking people out of their current perceptions of reality. He's making music. A lot of the music that is being created today seems to be reinforcing our cultural values. And I think that art is one of those things where it's an opportunity to bypass people's cultural conditioning and bring them out of their conditioning, to show them something new, something more interesting, to take them to the stratosphere and bring them back down to earth. And that's a very, very valuable thing to do, to go to the stratosphere and come back down to earth. Without that, we don't have reference points. We don't know what the fuck it is we're doing down here. It's why I think a lot of things like magic mushrooms and even cannabis and coffee and drugs, theatre, music, all kinds of art and all kinds of experiences that bring you out of yourself are very beneficial in small doses. I don't think we can stay at the stratosphere. That leads you to places you probably don't want to go. It'd be like taking 5 grams of magic mushrooms a day. It's not probably something you'd want to do. You wouldn't benefit from it because you'd be on such a different plane to everyone else in this reality that you wouldn't be of any use to this reality. So you may as well not be here. You may as well literally be in that other dimension. But what's useful is when you go to the stratosphere, you come back, and then you kind of put what you've learnt or seen into art, into words. Language is art. Language is nothing serious. It's just art. What am I making right now? I'm making art. I'm not speaking from my thoughts or my feelings. I'm just a vessel. I'm just a conduit. I don't have an angle. I'm not trying to become a YouTuber. None of that. None of that. I'm just walking through the woods, enjoying making vibrations. I'm enjoying this. I love it. And I don't claim to have any kind of knowledge that will change anyone's life or anything like that. I am just giving you my unique experience. I'm telling you in this art form that is probably my favorite art form, words, what my experience is like. And it's just a reference point. It's just for you to look at and go, haha, this guy's funny. Or, it's a talking point. We need talking points. When I get home, I talk to my mom and my girlfriend about everything that's happened during the day. Because it's interesting. Without that, we'd just be sitting in silence. I like creating talking points because a lot of the talking points today are kind of made for us. Like, it's all about, I don't want to go into this too much. I'm not a political man. But a lot of talking points today are just shoved in our faces. Like, everyone's bloody talking about, well, it was COVID, and then it's Ukraine, and it's like, fucking hell. I can't go anywhere where people are talking about anything different. And when I do, when I come across people who are really talking about something different, something interesting, I'm like, hang on, what the hell's going on here? It's like a rarity to find people really talking about something different that hasn't been talked about before. And to get to that point, you need space. You need space to explore. You need a ground level. It's very important to come back to some kind of ground level. No matter what you're doing, who you are, you've got to have a ground level. And for me, my ground level is just experience itself. It's just taking a moment to appreciate the sounds and the leaves blowing with the wind and the feeling of the cold and the mud on my feet. And that's my ground level. That's what brings me back. That's my grounding. Grounding is a funny thing. People talk about bloody going barefoot and saying it's all about grounding. But I think there are many more profound things to learn from feet. Like, I'll tell you my experience. I don't know if anyone else would ever have this experience, but I've got quite a philosophical mind. I have a tendency, I have a very rational mind, so I have a tendency to philosophize about the irrational. And what I'm stepping on at the moment is totally irrational. I couldn't tell you what it feels like to walk on a muddy floor. I could never put that into words. But I can philosophize about my experience of it. And I'm about to tell you what my experience of it has given me in terms of my philosophical outlook. I used to be someone who anticipated everything. It was like a roadblock kind of thing. I didn't do anything. I didn't go outdoors. I didn't socialize. I couldn't do anything because I was anticipating constantly. And so walking around with no shoes has cured that in me. Because if you're always anticipating the next step that you take, which you don't know what it's going to be. You don't know whether you're going to step on a piece of glass or a thorn. You can keep an eye out, but ultimately it's going to happen. It's inevitable that you're going to step on a bit of glass at some point. You're going to make a wrong step, or you're going to step somewhere that's not going to be so comfortable. That's not always wrong. In fact, stepping into territory that's not comfortable can be highly beneficial, but that's for another time. I love walking with no shoes because my brain is so rational, and it's almost like when I was young, I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't have a proper conversation because it felt like, I'm trying to come up with an equation for this and I can't. It's so random. There's no logical thought process that could lead me to even what I'm saying right now. I don't know why I say what I say. I don't know why I have the conversations I do. I couldn't tell you the whys of anything. I can't tell you. It's simply not in my vocabulary or my comprehension. I can't explain it. If you can, then I'd love to have a chat with you, because that would be very interesting. Coming back to anticipation, it's a big topic. I think a lot of people do this ice cold therapy, take cold showers, because they're trying to, at the root of it, cure their fear of the future. Because being in a cold shower it's not hard, being involved in something when you're in it is not as hard as you ever imagined it would be. For me, in my experience, it's always been the moment before I do something, the moment before I approach someone on the streets. And I had to overcome this doing my barefoot videos. I had terrible social anxiety, and I had to really flip this whole thing around in my mind that prevented me from going into the unknown for fear of what was going to be there, for fear of what kind of interaction I may have that was totally outside of my control. But doing what I've done, you know, I could make inferences as to why I've done what I've done, because it's my balance. If I didn't do these things, if I didn't walk around with no shoes, if I didn't challenge myself to go up to people in the streets, to make videos that I had no idea how they were going to turn out, what was going to come from them, and I'm telling you, an awful lot has come from making those videos. Things I could have never imagined. My life, since I started the whole barefoot guy thing, it's like my life went from being rather two-dimensional to just an explosion of, like a renaissance of perception and what is possible. And I don't feel limited. I really don't feel that limited anymore. I have my fears. I have bad days. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I don't fancy doing this. But I feel like I've developed a part of my brain where I can go into it anyway, where I can say what I meant to say anyway, regardless of that fear. It's like the fear and anxiety parts of my brain are like this small, and the parts of my brain that have my best interests at heart and really want to do something progressive and be of service to the world is like this big. It's like it always seems to outweigh all of my fear and anxiety. Coming back to the feet, it's taught me a lot, because you can't anticipate every step you're going to take, otherwise it'd be a nightmare. It'd be a fucking nightmare. You can't, I'm not scanning the floor in its minute detail thinking, I don't want to step there, I can't do that. I actually just have to accept whatever it is that I'm stepping on. But it's also shown me that in life, you only ever have to take one step at a time. You don't ever have to take more than one step at a time. It's just a step at a time. And that makes it a whole lot easier, because, you know, you're going to have painful steps, you're going to have smooth steps, you're going to have the whole spectrum of steps in your life. But ultimately, you have the knowledge that you're only going to have to take one step at a time. And the only thing in your whole being is going to be that one particular step that you're taking. So if you are in a position to take a step, then you're already there. You don't need anything else. If you can take the next step, you're set, you're done. You're on the journey to finding what it is that fills you up in life. And often people are scared of themselves. People are scared of how different they are. I'm scared. I have been terrified from a young age of how different I am in there to how I'm portraying myself and how other people are. And I tried to be like other people. I tried to be like everyone else, but it's not possible. It is possible, but it kills me. It's a nightmare. I'd rather be dead than not embrace whoever I am. And I'm still exploring that path. I haven't come into my ultimate form or anything. I don't even know whether that exists. But if I can enjoy doing what I'm doing, it's raining, so I'm gonna I'm gonna go back into the woods because it gives me a little bit of protection. And I want to make this video, I will get up to 30 or 35 minutes because I love being here. I love, if I can, I've had some wonderful comments, and if I can be of any benefit to you in whatever way, then that makes me so, so happy. The happiness that I get from making a video, being myself, and that's having a positive effect on a couple of people, that's good enough for me. I love that. I absolutely love that. But yeah, not forcing it. That's something that has taken me a long, long time to realize, that by forcing any aspect of my life, I'm actually preventing self-discovery. I'm actually prolonging the journey to get to my true form, as it were, or a truer form to which I can start to get much closer to a life of fulfillment. And ultimately, that's what we're all seeking, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you feel fulfilled in doing that, then what's the problem? Where are you going wrong? It doesn't, people will tell you, people who aren't fulfilled will tell you, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? But ultimately, it matters whether you feel fulfilled in what you're doing. And everyone has a unique blueprint, a unique journey that is going to take them to that life of fulfillment. So you've got to let things happen a little bit. You've got to, when you wake up in the morning, you can't just force yourself to do shit. You can't just say, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. There's nothing wrong with doing nothing. There's literally nothing wrong with doing nothing, twiddling your thumbs, sitting in a chair, staring at the wall. Because the way we are built as human beings, we are creative. And creativity is quite delicate, quite sensitive. When you force things in life, when you drag yourself around, when you drag your body and mind around, creativity runs the other way. On the other hand, when you let things happen, when you do nothing, creativity comes in and says, hello, I exist, let's do something, let's make something. And you'll start looking around you, seeing more creative possibilities than you could have ever imagined. And that, for me, is beautiful. When I can look around any environment and start seeing everything with a bit of a creative angle, I feel good. I feel good to be alive. I feel fulfilled in just that. I was on the train the other day, and everyone else I noticed is like plugged in on their phones, but I just did nothing the entire journey. It was like an hour train journey. I was just sitting there like doing nothing. And then I start with my hands, seeing all the weird shapes and like what I can do with my hands. And then I start looking at the advertisements on the wall, and I'm thinking like, oh, that's interesting how they've done that. And oh, I could do this and that. And then I'm looking at the patterns on the chairs and thinking, wow, it looks like a spaceship. And what I'm getting at is that you don't see your creative possibilities until you give yourself space. And I know space is hard to come by these days. It really is. I've dedicated many years. I'm only 21, but I've dedicated many years to finding that space to let my creativity blossom. and I'm still on that path. I don't feel creative all the time. I don't feel like doing things all the time. I'm riddled with self-doubt, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist as well. But it's all part of it. If I didn't have that, nothing would be worthwhile, because we each are dealt a hand. We each have cards in our hand, and the creativity is in playing those cards in the best way possible. Playing those cards in a way that feels good to you. And we can't choose our cards. That's the crux of it. And it's easy to look at other people's cards and say, oh, well, if I had their cards, I would be this and that. But you're never going to have their cards. And even if you did, they wouldn't work for you, because you're not them. You are you, and you have a unique blueprint. And your cards are actually exactly what you need. They're exactly what the universe is waiting for you to play, and find a way to play those cards, because that's what's going to fill you up. That's what's going to make you feel groovy in the morning. That's what's going to motivate you. That's what's going to give you that invisible hand at your back that pushes you to do things. That's what's going to make you live the life that's worth living, where you're not forcing yourself to do anything, where it all just comes naturally. And it doesn't always feel like a natural process to get to that point, because we've lived in this cycle. Many generations have lived on this treadmill of like, go, 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 and get out to work and build a business, stop procrastinating, be productive. And it is a waste of bloody time. It's not a life I want to live. And if I die tomorrow, I'm happy. I'm happy because I'm here right now, not forcing myself to do anything, going with my own flow. But there's a lot of things today that are like black holes, there to suck you in. And we've got to be very careful about those black holes. I'm talking about pornography, I'm talking about video games, I'm talking about drugs, I'm talking about all these things that are so tempting, but actually will ultimately detract from your true essence. It's good to dabble. It's good to do drugs once in a while. It's good to have had all these experiences. I was a porn addict when I was a kid. But it's taught me so much. Having gone to the depths, having been on the flip side of reality, has actually been of great service to me. It's been one of the things that keeps me in this state of really appreciating just feeling reality to its extent, to its true extent. And when I was a kid, I didn't feel that. And all these things that I did, video games, porn, weed, and smoking and drinking, all these things were really just symptoms of my mental state. It wasn't the cause of my mental state. The cause, well, that's a whole other video. But slowly I've sort of peeled back the layers, looked into what I'm doing. Why am I doing it? Is it really making me feel fulfilled? And slowly but surely I've found my way. It's been a wiggly path, but I found my way to a trajectory that feels good for me. And everyone's path is different. So don't take my path as what you should be experiencing, because it's not going to be what you experience in a million years. Unless reincarnation is possible, and you reincarnate as me and I reincarnate as you. But we don't know about any of that stuff. And I do like to discuss what we what is rational and what is grounded in our actual experience. I'm very much of a prospector, a philosophizer. I like looking at the world around me, but I don't like to make inferences that really are not constructive at all. I don't like to talk about aliens and all this stuff. I don't like to talk about things that we don't know about. You know, I don't like, because it's ultimately just fear mongering. It's like a lot of people are saying AI is going to destroy us all. Let me ask you this. When have the bad guys ever won? Where there is bad, there will be good. It's always the way. This universe simply doesn't allow for things to be so out of balance. There is always a balance somewhere. And if there is an army of bad AI, most likely there'll be an army of good AI alongside it. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a drama. It's probably going to be something big. Morning. But if we didn't have these dramas, if we didn't have wars and politics and all these things, all these facets to life, there'd be nothing on the flip side either, you know? There'd be no one inspired to do anything good. If everything was perfect, it simply wouldn't be worthwhile. There'd be nothing to live for. It'd be wake up in the morning in this hazy dream and everything is there right in front of you. Whatever you need, whatever you desire, you have perfect interactions with people and everything goes smoothly. And I bet the suicide rate would skyrocket, because that's the reality we live in. It's not going to be all good, and it's never going to be all bad. The pendulum might swing from one side to another. You know, there might be a period of time where there's more good than bad, or more bad than good, if you want to put it into simple categories like that, which is not reality. Reality is not binary. But ultimately, I don't want to live in that reality where nothing's going on in the world, where everything's hunky-dory. Likewise, I don't want to live in a reality where it's hellish, you know, where it's total hell. And I don't think there's ever been a time where reality has been one or the other. There's always been a bit of both. No matter what, everyone of all generations have talked about, oh, this is happening, this is on the horizon, technology is improving at a rapid rate and it's all gonna backfire. But we're here. We are in, I think it's the 21st of November 2023, and I'm here. I got the woods around me. Technology hasn't backfired. In fact, I'm using technology right now to make my life interesting. You know? Someone told me yesterday, well, a computer, the first computer in the 1980s or whenever it was like the size of a room, and it wasn't nearly as powerful as this phone. And they were trying to, you know, make me feel scared about that prospect. Oh my God, I have a phone that's more powerful than the most powerful computer 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whenever. But I tell you what, there's a lot of good that has come from these devices. There's bad, but there's a lot of good. There's a lot of great things happening that wouldn't be possible without the internet, without phones, without social media. So you get where I'm coming from. Life's worth living when we have the balance. Life's not worth living if we don't. There's no tension. A good movie, a good relationship, good anything, always has an element of tension. I can't make this video without holding my arm up for 40 minutes. Now I do a lot of yoga, and so that helps me with that. I do a lot of meditation, and so I don't feel the strain so much of holding my arm up. But I can tell you, when I got into writing, my hand would start aching like crazy after like 5 minutes of writing. You know, everything requires a little bit of both. You can't make a good movie without turning up on set some days and everyone's just fucking miserable. Everyone's out of it. No one wants to be there. That's all part of what makes a good movie. This is what I'm getting at. A good movie requires tension, even during the production of it. And in all the best movies, I've heard interviews from people who have been involved in some of the greatest movies of all time, and it just sounds like they've really experienced both sides. They've experienced nightmares while on set. They've experienced joyous moments, but they've experienced the full spectrum. And then they have something that's really interesting at the end of it, really worth talking about, a talking point, something that is ultimately going to uplift the world because it's hella fucking interesting. You know, a lot of the fields of study that are most interesting, like history, would they be interesting if nothing happened? No. You know, if it was all hunky-dory, they wouldn't be fields of study because there'd be nothing to study. A conversation requires two sides, requires multiple angles. If conversation was all one-sided, it would get boring and there'd be no reason to be here. We may as well all go and kill ourselves. But this is why I feel at ease most of the time, because I know that there's gonna be altercations. I'm gonna have down days. We're all gonna have down days. We're all gonna experience conflict. But the flip side is a life without conflict, without any of this stuff. And it's not worth living. It's hella boring. I sat in my garden for like a couple of years smoking weed with no conflict in my life whatsoever. I was just grooving. I was grooving with the wind and the whatever, and it was great when I first got into it, but then it became hellish. This good vibe that I was always in became monotony. It became a life not worth living. And then I started to think, well, what the fuck? Weed is supposed to make me feel good. I'm always high. Why do I not feel good? And it's because I didn't have the flip side. I noticed a trend when I'd have a day without smoking weed, where I had real shit happening, where I had altercations and drama. I'd get back and smoke weed, and that weed would hit different. Why? Because we ain't robots. We're humans. And to me, a human represents all forms. A fully functioning human is not scared of taking any form. You can get angry. You can be sad. You can be happy. You can feel everything to its fullest extent. And that's not a bad thing. It's not good to be scared of any of these feelings because they are about. I am telling you, they are about. There's a lot of anger in the world right now. Something terrible just happened. My iPhone storage is full. So I just had to delete a bunch of apps to record this little segment. And yeah, I was on a really interesting point, but we'll have to put that one to bed for now. And also I realized I was nearly up to about 45 minutes. So I'm going to leave it there for today. If you've made it this far in the video, God bless you. You're an amazing soul. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me, message me. I'm a social guy. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now. I don't want to bore you too much, even though boredom's good. Too much of anything is not good. Everything in moderation, including boredom. So I'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for watching. You're a beautiful human being. And I'll see you most likely tomorrow. I say things, but following through is a whole other thing. I might wake up tomorrow and be like, I don't want to do YouTube ever again. I don't want to make a fucking single video for the rest of my life. But we'll see. We'll see when it comes to tomorrow. All right. Peace.